The UK does not need a trade deal with Trump. I cannot be more emphatic than that. I am scared rigid by the fact that Keir Starmer apparently thinks that a trade deal with the USA is the goal of his foreign policy at present. There are good reasons to think it should not be, even though J.D. Vance is dropping the hint that we might get one within 3 weeks. Let's look at those good reasons. The first is very simple and very straightforward. You don't get into bed with a fascist. It's a good rule for life, that one. I suggest you live by it, because fascists are not nice people. And the Trump regime is made up of fascists. Let's stop pretending anymore. These are people who will send a man to El Salvador wrongly and say they can do nothing about it, leaving him to rot in an El Salvadorian prison for life because they don't care. These are the people who are threatening you. These are the people who are threatening the rule of law in the USA. These are the people who are upturning the world's trading systems to create chaos and cause havoc in so many countries around the world, from which the most vulnerable will suffer the most. These are the people who are actually threatening democracy. But Starmer wants a deal with them. I reiterate my point. You don't get into bed with fascists. But let's just move on from that point, glaringly obvious as it is. If you are in a world where you have a choice as to who you do a trade deal with, those who are destroying the system or those who are trying to maintain the system which has worked reasonably well, I don't say perfectly because that would be untrue, but reasonably well, who would you do that deal with? Would you do it with the USA, who's a force of destruction? Or would you do that deal with Canada, Japan, South Korea, all the states of the European Union, Australia, New Zealand, even India and Brazil and others who participate in the world trading system at present without so many of the impediments that Trump is creating? You would, of course, choose your friends. You would, of course, choose the Commonwealth countries. You would, of course, go for order over chaos. And yet Starmer is choosing chaos. It makes absolutely no sense at all. But nor will the details of this trade deal make sense. We haven't seen the details yet, but we've heard the mood music coming out of Washington, and that is unambiguous as to what it means. Any trade deal with the US will not just be about trade. There will be massive conditions attached. Conditions like the ending of abortion rights in the UK, or at least making them vastly more draconian. The ending of the rights of human beings in the UK, the watering down of our Human Rights Act, and therefore the ending of the right to protect minorities inside this country to pacify the whims of the right-wing fanatics in Washington. There will be measures to proactively harm the interests of people in this country if we are going to be able to sell minis into the USA still. It's a trade-off that nobody should think about. We don't also want US food in this country. US food is created in ways that are deeply dangerous to human well-being and health. There is no way on earth that we should accept US beef in this country or US chicken in this country or genetically modified foods in this country. They are not acceptable, but they will be a condition of a trade deal. We don't want US banking in this country. It's already having a pernicious and dangerous influence on policy in the UK. We are seeing US financial institutions take over the management of our pension funds. They take all the upside, they take all the fees. They leave us with all the risk. This is fleecing the UK. It's not a trade deal. It's simply about pillaging the wealth of this country for the benefit of US financial institutions. And we don't want to maintain our links with the dollar for longer than we have to either, because that is almost certainly going to be a requirement of this trade deal. We know now that one of the goals that Trump has is to maintain the power of the US dollar whilst reducing its value, which might require, perversely, that interest rates rise, meaning that he would export those high interest rates into the UK and with them inflation. But at the same time, he might demand that we reduce our control over sterling to keep the dollar low in value. We cannot give up control of our economy, again, to these right-wing fanatics in Washington. We must not do a deal with the US. We need red lines, and one of those red lines is we don't deal with fascists. Another must be that we have the right to say no. We have the right to be decent. We have the right to be empathic. We have the right to human rights. We will say no to the fact that Trump demands we give up all these things. This is not a time for compromise or deals. This is a time to stand up and say, we say no. Keir Starmer needs to do that on our behalf, to save the credibility of the Labour Party, to provide it with an electoral future. But more than that, to stand up for all the things that in 1939 we went to war about and so many people died for. We need to preserve Western democracy. Shallow as it can sometimes be, faulty as it often is, we need to keep it because of all the options for government we've ever tried. It may be bad, but it's still the best. And Starmer has a duty to say no to Trump as a consequence.